Welcome back to Marketing That Pops. I'm your host, Olivia, and today we have a very special guest. We have Ernest Toney here with us, BIPOCann strategic efforts to enhance equitable representation for Black, Indigenous, and people of color who are entrepreneurs, business owners, and professionals in the cannabis industry. Previously, he's managed global marketing for Marijuana Business Daily, a leading B2B news source, and also a producer of BIPOCann, which is an award-winning trade show. So welcome to the pod.
Hey, thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I know you've been talking with Michelle a little bit, and so she was like, I think you'd be great to have on. So I'm so excited to have you here. So, with our podcast, what we like to do is we like to start off with asking a question to just get it going. Usually, it's like a myth that we're trying to debunk. So, what I would love to ask you today is what's one thing that you think that people just get wrong about the cannabis industry? It could be a
Right.
number of things that people get wrong.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think one of the things that I would probably say people who are new to the cannabis industry, let's say they want to start a business,
Hmm.
might get wrong is that it's not as easy to start and build a successful
Hmm.
business in this industry as some might think. And let's talk like specifically about those licensed plant touching businesses. Maybe someone has dreams or aspirations of opening a retail or manufacturing products or being a cultivator. I think a lot of times, if you are on the outside looking in, you might think that this is an industry that is going to propel you to fame, fortune,
Yep.
and that it's not really that hard to do. And
Hmm.
for people who are coming in, there's a litany of challenges that they have to face. It's not just about starting a business and being an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
It's about operating in one of the most tightly regulated industries in the country,
Hmm.
one s- that is difficult to navigate because of its partial legal status. So, in the years that I've been doing my work over at BIPOCann, we have not only mentored over 50 entrepreneurs, but we've worked with hundreds of individuals who want to get into the industry. And most, when they get started, underestimate the time, the cost, and just the how much you have to deal with from like a compliance standpoint
Hmm.
just before you open up your doors. So I would say the biggest myth is that it's not easy.
I
Not as
feel
easy as it might look on social media, right?
Yeah, I feel like we interviewed someone last week and she was saying the same thing of like people get into it thinking it's going to be like this gold mine and the floodgates are just going to open up and all you got to do is plant a couple seeds and then you're rocking and rolling, and it's no, it takes a few more things than that. After leaving MJ Biz Daily, what was like your driving factor to get started with BIPOCann?
It's crazy because it feels 2020 was so long ago. That's because things happen so fast in the cannabis industry. But going back to 2020, there was so much that was happening. We were still in the middle of COVID. And a big reason that I decided to leave MJ Biz was there was no guarantee that the events world was coming back anytime soon.
Yeah,
That company was generating the majority of its revenue off of MJ BizCon, a 5-day event in Las Vegas at the end of the year, and all of a sudden there are no places like
right.
you can't have big.
Can't
Uh,
leave your house.
yeah, and this was at the time like there were over 30,000 people from around the world coming to an event. So uh, COVID definitely affected the makeup of composition of that team. Third of the company was either let go or furloughed. I was fortunate enough to keep my position, but there was a lot of uncertainty around what we were going to work to do every every.
Right. Yeah. Well,
The other part about it, the other driving force was that social justice really just all of the challenges around that, like really was at the forefront of the national, if not global, conversation in 2020.
absolutely.
You think about how just the reaction to people after George Floyd was murdered, and then I felt the cannabis industry started to really embrace these ideas around social equity. And
Mhm,
it, like a lot of companies were saying, yeah, we need to lean in and do our part to contribute to a more fair and inclusive industry.
mm,
And I felt like where I was sitting at that time, I was in a position where I was lucky enough to work at MJ Biz. I had traveled to multiple countries. I had met every type of stakeholder that was interested in this industry.
mhm,
I knew that so many additional markets were about to open, and I felt like I wanted to do something that could make it easier for people, especially those minority and underrepresented people that wanted to
mm,
have a chance to start a business, generate some wealth, make sure that I could use like my skill set, relationships, and knowledge to make it easier for them to enter the industry, to
mm,
navigate its
mhm,
challenges, to build relationships with people that I had formed strong bonds with. And that was really the big motivation around it. I felt like so much of the conversations around social equity were policy driven, which is,
mm,
but I also felt like there was a big gap in educating those prospective social equity license applicants about the realities of starting a business. And I felt if I could solve the problem more from the business and the industry side,
mm,
then we could help people where policy stopped.
mhm. No, I when I was, like, doing my research and, yeah, I was so interested that about the fact that you did start this really wide and great project during the midst of all of that. Was it hard to get things off the ground because you were remote or because of all the challenges that honestly COVID presented? Or do you feel like that it made it more possible because you had all of these things like the driving force?
I think that anytime you start a business and you're trying to take these ideas and concepts and put them into reality, it's hard. It's also very exciting, but I don't think that the conditions and the timing was right.
Mhm,
Realistically, if COVID hadn't happened and everybody in the world wasn't at home with all this like extra time, I don't think the business ever would have. I mean, I never would have started it. Like I
mm,
would have been in the routine of doing my normal day to day
mm,
marketing. And
mhm,
COVID, like, and during that time frame, it actually gave me an opportunity to be at home and to really think about how I was using my time and my talents. And I felt like because everyone had shifted to a remote space, once I came up with the idea and started being vocal about it, it actually made conversations and meetings with like execs and media companies more accessible because I feel like if we weren't in a remote world, it would have been harder for me to probably even be seen and heard.
mhm.
And it definitely would have been more challenging for me to build and strengthen some of the relationships with those execs that
It's nice to know that obviously some good came out of us being all at home for all that time, and it definitely did change a lot of mindsets, and we were able to you're saying, be able to think and be at home with your thoughts and figure out, like, how can I what am I putting out? So that's great. I know you talked about your mentorship, programs, and you're recently starting a second one. Can you talk a little bit about that?
sure. Yeah. So let's see. I actually finished my third program in 20 earlier in 2024. And I had mentioned in the first question you were asking about like debunking myths. I feel like the first couple of years, the work that I was doing in BIPOCann was very much around amplifying others, trying to use my platforms and partner platforms to give people a chance to be seen and heard.
Mm,
So attacking the diversity gaps by being very active with encouraging visibility. And what had happened during those first couple of years was it felt like I started to build some relationships with some social equity entrepreneurs who were having a lot of difficulty getting their business off the ground. And there's one person in particular who I met back in 2021, Michael Diaz Rivera. He's very well known right now. He's the owner of Better Days Delivery. And he started a social equity delivery business.
mhm,
Michael and I started working together back in 2021 because he was having a lot of difficulty finding dispensary partners that
Mm,
work with him to do delivery. And he's very persistent. He'd call just about every dispensary in the Denver area, had no luck.
mhm,
But I reasoned that I essentially helped him secure his first contract through just some relationships. And
mm,
during that time, he was also working on building his like messaging and how he communicates about his business. So I was coaching him on like some marketing and PR type things. So
mhm,
that really I felt started to be like the basis of some of this like more one-on-one mentorship coaching with
mm,
people.
mhm,
And as time passed, I managed to build some relationships with the Colorado's Cannabis Business Office, which is part of the Office of Economic Development. So back in 2022, that office had they started to award their first grants for social equity licensed applicants and entrepreneurs,
mhm,
and they were giving grants up to $50,000. And I thought that was really great to help people get a
mm,
business off the ground. But they were also the department really didn't have resources to do much else. So I approached them and offered to make those dollars go farther by providing some mentorship assistance
mm,
to the
mhm,
audience. So we did a pilot in 2022 and had good results. And in 2023, had a cohort of 13 individuals that we work with for 15 weeks. And in 2024, from January to May, we had 17 in our cohort. These are all 16 of them had some type of regulated license. So they represented retail, manufacturing, delivery, processing, hospitality, cultivation.
yeah, okay,
And our program is one where we really try to meet people where they are. So when the folks opt in, we provide them with an intake form, try to figure out what some of their goals and challenges are. And
mhm,
based off of that, I work within BIPOCann's network and my personal network to find a mentor that I can connect them with so that they get
mm,
one-on-one for general advisory and guidance.
mhm,
Over the course of that mentorship program, we also have a structured curriculum. So we have people working on the fundamentals of their business, working on
mhm,
best practices, accounting best practices, teaching and coaching them how to network. A
that's
lot
so good.
Majority of the people say their biggest challenges are access to capital. But I know that when I try to communicate is, yeah, I know this is a capital intensive industry. We all need it. And if your goal is to pitch or to ask someone to raise funds, you need to be very clear about what it is that you're asking for, why
Mhm,
here, and what is it that is your unique value proposition? What makes your business different? But you
mhm,
also need to understand your fundamentals and figure out how you can solve problems. So
yeah,
we try to coach people on the fundamentals of business. And then as time passes, we get them to apply some of their insights. And those each mentorship sort of culminates with a big event. 2023, we had a big media day where we had all our participants get professional photography. We had several of our members go to the Cannabis Marketing Summit, and Michelle was there. Yeah.
mhm,
Some of them had never been to a conference before, and then some of them had never done a vendor pop up. So they both had
mhm,
the opportunity to network and do a vendor booth. This year we had what we called our vendor diversity day.
mm,
So the program ended with the participants having the grant winners in our program. They had a chance to basically set up their booth
okay,
and promote their brand. And
mhm,
we also had a panel where the social equity program participants who were in it last year and this year talked about their growth, their journey, their successes. These are all 5 people who a year ago were struggling to generate revenue or struggling to get their doors open. And a year later, they're revenue producing, they have products on the market, they're trying to figure out how to grow and scale their business. So we could point to the real impacts of this structured mentorship program.
Yeah, that's so good because a lot of people they come to us and maybe they have the expertise and like I said, maybe they're on the grow or maybe they are really business focused and they've had other businesses, but for the cannabis market it's so different and coming into it, it's just they don't necessarily know like the ins and outs. And so I think that's great that you were able to provide those kind of like detailed, like, scaling things and being able to, like, have that one-on-one time is you can't beat that.
Yeah, it's something I've been very proud about because I can and we've had so many great testimonials and just seeing the growth in these individuals over the past year, going from I have a product idea, I have an
Mm,
idea, this idea in mind, and then a year later, like it has come to market. There's one person in the program, she was not very confident with speaking a year ago, and she's in the panel, and she's just the program has been and how excited she is to get her products into the market and just be a force to reckon with. The one thing, like I said, I've done a pilot and two 15-week programs here in Colorado. All the entrepreneurs in the program so far have been in Colorado.
okay.
But because we also built a foundation through the program and made some improvements, we like BIPOCann is planning to open that up and have a more of a digital mentorship program or masterclass so that we can make that available to entrepreneurs outside of the Colorado market as well.
Yeah, because I was wondering, I know you said people come to you at different stages. Is there, like, an ideal stage that maybe you might say, if you're, like, looking or you're struggling here, this is probably the best time for you to reach out and try to apply, for this program?
That's a good point. So I feel like we meet people in a lot of different areas. And the way that we'll likely break this down when we launch our programs is ask people where they are in business. So are you, I would probably break it down into businesses that are, and these are plant touching businesses that are pre-licensed, and then you have your businesses that are licensed and operational. The challenges and the focus for people who are pre-licensed are going to be a lot different than those who have already met the requirements.
Mhm,
They might call it like I've met suitability,
mhm,
but I would really focus. So you have those two buckets, and but I think where we would the programming really like touches on three different growth, three different stages of business. So it's the startup and the build phase.
mhm,
It's probably going to be more of your pre-license people.
mhm,
It's the growth phase, which are probably the people who are licensed and working towards opening up their doors or who have started to generate some revenue.
mhm,
And then it's the scale phase. So these are the businesses that have their product on the market, they're generating revenue, and now they're trying to figure out how they can expand. And I think that's where we're going to
yeah.
try to meet people.
I think that's good because sometimes people might not know, oh, I've already got this going, but I still don't, I still need help. And it's nice to know that you still have resources where you can still step in and offer knowledge and those mentorships. Do you feel that like at the large convention, is there a place that where people should be attending if they're trying to learn more about like social equity? Do you feel like there are more resources that they should be tapping into? Like I know at MJ BizCon that there's a few panels, but do you feel like there's better ones or there's more specific ones that people can should be going to and attending?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are a lot of I think there are a lot of great conferences out there that provide good learning opportunities and networking opportunities.
Mhm.
Mm, But I think that probably so there's a few challenges with it. Typically, conferences are trying to, like, if I think of an MJ BizCon, they have primarily been like a big ancillary based business. If you go to their expo floor, the majority of the companies provide some type of service, which is great if you're a social equity operator and you're like, I need certain services. Now I can go to this particular area and meet people and I can choose who I might be interested in working with.
Mhm.
But if you have the license but aren't really sure what it is that you're looking for, then I could see how a conference like that would be overwhelming. Not just because it's massive, but it's because, all right, now I go to a place and there's 50 packaging companies. Which one do I work with?
Mhm.
It's overwhelming, and it's a lot of information to try to manage and try to consume. So see how
Yes.
I mean, I think of a conference like Benzinga, they have their capital conference, and we partnered with them over the past couple of years to make it easier for social equity and women and minority owned businesses to get free admission to the event.
Mm,
I think that's a great event for folks who are interested in networking and learning about capital and
mm,
finance in general.
mhm.
I think if you're going there and your goal is, I want to raise dollars, and you're also competing with everyone else who's going there with that exact
Yeah.
same goal. I think in terms of going to conferences where people can learn about social equity, I just recently attended CANRA, like the Cannabis Regulators Association. So this is their annual meeting where they bring in government regulators, their country and their member organizations, and they invited external stakeholders. I was in a position to do some resource sharing and let them know about the impacts of the social equity mentorship program. And I felt like that's a great model because now you can directly communicate with people who have real control over how social
Yeah.
programs are being structured.
Mhm.
But I think the thing that's challenging about conferences is that there's so many to choose from.
There really is.
Typically, unless there's a conference that is specifically catering to social equity businesses
Mm,
and everything around that, then you're going to get a little bit of everything else.
mhm,
And that means you're going to have people in the room who care deeply about social equity and others who don't know what it is or just don't care about it at all.
mhm.
Mm. And you're going to have some, and that can be challenging too for the individuals who are social equity who are trying to figure out who they should work with, they should trust. I don't know if that answered the question, but I do
No,
think that there is a gap out there for creating spaces that are specifically designed to help uh,
mhm.
solve social equity issues from beginning to end.
Yeah. No, it does answer my question because Biz is one of the largest cannabis conventions that there is. And it's like you said, there's when you go, you get a little bit of everything, all the different panels and all of that. I I asked that question because of that. It's you could go and you could learn some great stuff, but it's is that the room that I'm supposed to be in? That type of a thing. So I just always try to want to make sure that we're giving people the right resources and also opening doors to the ones that maybe they didn't even know were available to them.
Yeah, I guess one of the ways I try to think of it too is um, social equity and the conversations around it are so complex, not just because of like the social issues, but the regulatory challenges. And but when I think of, let's say, someone who's brand new, I mentioned this before, but you're starting a business, you're excited,
You're green.
and there's a lot that you have to think about. You're probably gonna, maybe you bootstrapped it. You're gonna be, your resources are, you are trying to figure out what your place and space is in this industry looks
Mm.
like.
Mhm.
If you have to, you're gonna make some mistakes. Every entrepreneur does. Part is making sure that you're not getting taken advantage of, making
Mm.
sure that you're not engaging with predatory like service providers. And
Mhm.
you just don't know who those are, like if you're doing it on your own. And
Mm.
that's one reason that when I started BIPOCann, it was really to try to vet some of those relationships or open up my network to people
Yeah.
I know and respect and trust who are trying to do good with people who are new to the market that are trying to figure out how they can accelerate their growth. And you can save people a lot of time and money and pain points and headaches if they both parties subscribe to that. We try to be a good resource there, and even through some of the partnerships with conferences where we solve some of the financial challenges by having scholarship partnerships so that social equity folks can get that free admission to an event. Now they
Mhm.
to network, boom, we remove one barrier. All of them, but we got you in the room. You can
Yeah.
learn about business, learn about the industry, learn about the community. So I think these conferences that provide talk points on all of the different things that touch the industry and
Mhm.
potentially affect your business is important, um, as well. So
Yeah. Because, like you said, it's like when people are starting out, they have to be in the room because it's, "Oh, I didn't even think about, XYZ," and having those other conversations is really helpful. Um, Switching gears a little bit, I had saw that you made this post on LinkedIn talking about, like, Tootsie Rolls and how just the impact of that marketing campaign is, and we talk about that a lot on our pod, but also just here in the office about just marketing campaigns that kinda just stick with you. For me, it's like the Nike, the Just Do It, or the Got Milk campaign and how crazy that was and how long, that campaign just went on with celebrities and all of that. What about that campaign in particular stood out just to give the audience a little bit of insight on that?
I swear sometimes like I want to share and be vulnerable again, but no, I know why I posted it. I love marketing. I love entrepreneurship. I love thinking of creative solutions and ways to solve problems or affect consumer psychology and things like that.
Mhm.
And I don't know how old I was, but I was in middle school, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that famous Tootsie Roll commercial where
Oh,
like
yeah.
Jane walks up and asks the owl like how many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop, and
Mhm.
the owl does 3 licks. And it was the end, right? At the end, they said, "How many licks does it take?" And they said, "The world may never know." Now, me as a kid, I was such a go-getter, high achiever. Like, you give me a challenge, I want to tell you that I know the answer. So when I saw that commercial, and I saw it over and over again, and they said, "The world will never know." I was like, "I really want to know. I want
Mhm.
to answer to this." And I remember asking my mom to buy a bag of Tootsie Pops. That was my way of using negotiation skills to get me.
Right, to get candy.
And but there was one weekend I remember sitting there and I literally counted until I got to the middle. And then once I knew the answer, I thought it was really important for the Tootsie Roll company to know the answer.
Of of
So
course.
I wrote I wrote the letter to tell them what the answer was, and they sent me back a certificate that had like my name and the amount of licks, and I saved that and I framed
I
it.
love that.
So it was a marketing campaign that, like, I'm sure was based off of an old cartoon, but that campaign was already more than like 15, maybe 20 years old when I saw it.
Right. Mhm.
And it's been a long-standing campaign. I can't even imagine how many billions of dollars in revenue like that
Oh,
campaign
yeah.
has generated over the
Mm.
past few decades, but it stuck with me because it caught my attention. I The call to action for me was to figure out the answer.
Right.
Then I took it a step further to write back. But the thing that stuck with me was the engagement
Mhm.
because they wrote back and they took the time to make a kid that was a customer feel good about their product.
Mhm.
And because it was all handled in such a unique time, it was something that stuck with me. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was a really cool campaign, and but the end effect was that they made the customer feel special.
Yeah. I'd love to be a fly on the wall during that market discussion of coming up with that campaign, and even with the people who responded with to you, good on them for being a good marketing team of being able to actually reply, and yeah, that's awesome. Do you feel like there's any other campaigns that kind of even stand the test of time in that way? I just feel like there we have a few, but I don't know, is there any other that stick out to you in that way?
I don't know. I have to think about that. That one stuck out with me personally.
Yeah.
That story. What about you? Are there any that you can think of?
Like I said, the Got Milk campaigns, mostly because I was like, "How are they getting those milk mustaches so perfect?"
Well, I guess one that's one, one that affects our industry is like this is your brain on drugs. One with the egg and the
Oh,
skillet.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I felt like that was probably a really effective one to and that's one that and then in the cannabis industry, you also have the Reefer Madness campaign that is still very much responsible for a lot of the stigma
Mm,
associated beliefs and harms related to cannabis. It can work both ways. It can it can also you can have marketing campaigns that they can be viewed and that negatively affected new industry.
Yeah. Is there any marketing campaigns that you have been a part of that you feel like, "Oh, man, this was a great campaign. I loved our call to action. I loved, like, the touch points that we had with our clients." Is there any that have stood out to you?
Yeah, sure. When I worked at MJ Biz back in 2019, 2018, before Associations Day was launched, the guy that hired me, Chris Day, used to be the VP of marketing over there. Chris was really interested in trying to create a space for organizations that are doing good in the industry to come together. And he had kicked off this pilot program, and it had been pretty successful, just getting a lot of different trade associations that touched several different, some are advocacy, some are sustainability focused, some are
Mhm,
more about education in general. And kicked that off, had decent turnout. But in 2019, that's when we really, I think, came up with a marketing campaign for it and called that Associations Day. And Associations Day is still one of the critical pieces of the MJ BizCon event. And
mhm,
but in 2019, I felt like it was very special because a big focus about that during that year, I'm working with Chris to really expand our global marketing partnerships. So that was a mix of a digital strategies, like launching like international market reports. We were going to conferences in different countries,
mm,
and we were also just trying to find partners globally and domestically who could support attendance at this event. And
mhm,
we get down to, I'd probably say maybe 2 or 3 months out from the conference, and after we had identified who our marketing partners were for that event, I think we had about just over 40 who were involved in Associations Day that year. I felt like we put a lot of energy into giving them really good value. So they had a chance to showcase their business for free,
mm,
talk about their association and their cause. Um, we asked them to do some very simple but effective marketing to promote the event. They were getting steeply discounted tickets,
mhm.
and we had over 100% year over year growth in terms of our
Wow.
market registrations and our registrations attributed to partnership marketing. So that year we had over 1,900 paid registrations that we could point back to our association state partners. And that brought in close to $1 million in revenue just through that one program. That was really fun. And I don't believe that, and I'm sure COVID definitely affected ways in
Of
2020,
course.
but I don't believe that conference has hit those metrics since that year. So I thought what we did was really effective.
Yeah. I wanna say that was the first year that we attended MJ BizCon.
Another one, completely unrelated, but I think a few years after I finished graduate school, I started working at a YMCA in Tucson, Arizona. We were like a YMCA community center. Like we partnered with an adjacent college, and the branch that I work for was like the largest in the entire community. There's maybe 6 branches, but ours was like the flagship. But we had this day that we call like changing. It was like changing lives campaign. We had this big community event where we had probably 40,000 people show up.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. That's way too much. I think we had 40,000 members. I think the community event probably had closer to 10. And what was really cool about that is we were trying to raise scholarship dollars to help families who, like back in 2009, like we're in the middle of the recession and a lot of families had lost their income, and we wanted to create a safe space for people to work out, do community programs and
Yeah.
events like that. So we had a really successful scholarship drive, and I created like a fun little, almost a fantasy sports theme around it. Like people would come up to the facility and we would have a football team and ask them, what's your favorite team? Support this campaign. And
Mm.
had like some cool prizes associated with it. So we raised over like $100,000 that year, and um, a few people won a suite of tickets to an NFL game, and
Oh, wow.
it wasn't like a campaign that a lot of people knew about outside of that one little area, but
Yeah.
it was one that I think created a lot of fun and engagement and excitement, helped us raise some revenue, helped us like get a lot of people access to continuing to use the YMCA programs during a time when people were hurting for resources. So
Mhm. I think it's like those kind of campaigns that people are makes it memorable for the people that attended and were involved. I'll share one with you. So one that we get recognized for in our area is a lot of times when people come to Thrive Pop, they probably previously worked with a marketing agency, maybe they got burned. So we did a ghosting campaign, basically where they may have gotten ghosted by their other marketing agency. So we filmed a couple of like funny videos of and this was like all around like Halloween. We had the scary music in the background and still to this day, that was a few years ago. People will come up to us like, "Oh my gosh, I love those videos of you guys." And where you got ghosted by your marketing agency. So sometimes it's just like the fun stuff that the little ideas that really win people over. So
that's a good one.
yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, we've all been there. You worked in marketing long.
Yeah. You throw enough ideas at the wall, one of them's bound to stick, right? I really enjoyed talking with you today and learning a little bit more about your business and what you're doing. Can you tell everybody where they can find you on the internet?
Sure, sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn, just it's Ernest L. Toney. And you can also visit BIPOCann. It's BIPOCAN.com. Those are probably the two. If you visit the website, you can if there's any questions that you have, there's ways that you can fill out like an info form and me or a team member can get back to you. If you want to reach out to me directly, I'd say LinkedIn is probably the best platform. Later in 2024, we're looking at having a rebrand of the not a rebrand, but we're going to change the look and feel of the website.
Mm,
One of the things that's been really fun with running all these programs over the past few years is like there's so much data and content and all of these insights that we need to share.
yeah.
And the hard part when you're running programs is all your attention is going there and you don't have as much time to share the results of what you're doing. So we have a backlog of new content that we are making available
Mhm.
to the website, and we're really excited about making that available. That'll be out there before the fall, before the conference season, just to let people know more about the resources that are available through our network.
Beautiful. And then we will just keep people updated of what you got going on. And once you launch that digital program, I'm sure that people will want to get in touch with you about that as well.